A girl loses her parents and has to live with her aunt, a programmer in a leading toy company. As both face struggles in this new setup, the aunt invents an AI doll to help them transition smoothly. However, this is just the beginning of something they never thought they would encounter. One winter day, a family drives to a mountain for a ski trip while the daughter, Cady, is completely engrossed with her AI toy, Perpetual Pets. Seeing their daughter, the parents argue about her screen time, with the mother, Ava, criticizing her sister, Gemma, for giving the child a toy operated through an iPad. At the same time, the father, Ryan, defends them. Suddenly, the car wobbles on the road, causing the toy to fall on the floor. While Ava scolds her husband for not checking the vehicle, Cady unbuckles her seatbelt to get her toy. Ava panics and buckles up her daughter. She insists Ryan to stop driving and wait for help. Amidst their discussion, a huge truck slams into them. Meanwhile, at Funky Toys, Gemma, a promising programmer, argues with her team member, Tess, regarding the presentation of their new project, Model 3 Generative Android, also called M3gan, to their boss, David. Cole, a team member, interrupts them to show a package containing the silicone skin of their AI doll. They test their android by inputting human facial expressions, which it mimics. However, when it comes to confusion, the AI shows a demented smirk, making Gemma unsettled. When David arrives, he sees M3gan and becomes angrier as this is an unknown project. His assistant, Kurt, shows Gemma an advertisement for a competitor's toy, Furzies, which are a replica of Perpetual Pets but for half a price. David declares that M3gan is a waste of money because it's expensive to manufacture. David insists on launching a cheaper toy, but Gemma points out that the only way to lead the industry is to produce a toy that competitors can't copy. To demonstrate its capabilities, M3gan greets David, but it suddenly malfunctions. Gemma persists with the demonstration, but Cole informs her that he forgot to install the temperature-regulating device. In seconds, the silicone skin melts, and the droid blows up. David sternly commands Gemma to submit the prototype of the new cheaper toy by the end of the week and get rid of the android. That evening, Gemma receives a call from the hospital. She rushes to the place and signs a temporary protective custody paper for her niece since both parents perished in the accident. Gemma takes Cady to her house. When the programmer unloads the child's things from the car, the neighbor's dog, Dewey, runs to her barking fiercely while the owner, Celia, ignores it despite Gemma's warnings. Then, the aunt escorts Cady into the house and Elsie, her AI assistant, greets her. The awkwardness escalates when the girl touches Gemma's collectibles because she emphasizes they aren't for playing. That evening, she checks up on Cady, but then she abruptly leaves, so her niece asks if she won't read her a book like her mom did. After unpacking Cady's things in the other room, she hears her niece sobbing. The following day, Gemma calls Tess to admit that she doesn't suit the guardianship. She also expresses concern for their deadline and team finances since David can sue them. Tess advises that she should focus on Cady instead. The doorbell rings, and Gemma meets Lydia, the therapist. Lydia urges Cady to play with her toys, but the girl tells her there's none. The therapist points to the collectibles, but Cady explains that they're not for playing, which solicits a meaningful stare from Lydia. Gemma unboxes one of the toys out of embarrassment and gives it to Cady. The girl plays it like a ball, but the aunt comments that the toy isn't played like that. Lydia interrupts and asks the girl to roll the toy over to her aunt. Gemma insists that the toy has unique features, to which Lydia responds with another meaningful stare. After the session, the therapist points out that it's her job to ensure that Cady's in a safe environment. So if the aunt seriously wants to take custody, she has to change. If not, the child may be transferred under her grandparents' care from Ryan's side of the family. The next day, while eating breakfast, Gemma explains that she has to work from home. To appease the child, the aunt allows her to use the iPad as long as she wants. That evening, Gemma works until late at night. Cady enters her office and shows her animal drawings, which the aunt praises. The child smiles, but Gemma presents the Perpetual Pets, which reminds the girl of the accident. So she looks around and spots Bruce, her aunt's robot she made back in college. Gemma wears Bruce's control gloves and turns it on. The bot mimics her actions and gives Cady a high five, which makes the girl laugh. She inquires about the toy, and Gemma passionately explains how it works but comments that toys like Bruce are expensive. Cady remarks that if she could have one toy like that, she won't need anything else, which inspires Gemma. Because of this, she starts developing M3gan in her house with Tess and Cole. On the day of the presentation, the boss impatiently views the exhibit room for the prototype. Gemma escorts Cady into the room and shows her the AI doll while David watches the events from the two-way mirror. The programmer explains to her niece how to power on M3gan, and the doll scans Cady's face. It greets her kindly and walks to the drawing table to doodle something, then hands the paper to Cady. However, the paper is blank, so M3gan apologizes and reaches out to her, but it accidentally topples the glass, and the water spills on the paper. David becomes disappointed, but suddenly, a portrait of Cady is revealed when the paper turns wet. The boss is incredibly impressed and gives gives a go to the project. He adds that Greg, the chairman, may agree to this if it appeals emotionally. Since her niece is paired with M3gan, the doll is taken home for observation. Days go by, and Cady bonds with M3gan. At the same time, Gemma copes with the lifestyle since giving basic reminders, answering queries, and taking care of the child are done mainly by M3gan. Tess expresses her concern about Gemma's active part in Cady's life since M3gan is doing everything. She adds that a toy can't replace a parent, and if the bot makes the programmer spend less time with her child, then the team should be aware of it. Gemma denies Cady as her child and explains that M3gan's good for her niece since it's the happiest she's ever been. Suddenly, M3gan asks how Cady's parents perish. Gemma commands the bot to power off, but it searches the girl's files, reciting what happened in the accident, so she commands it to follow protocol. The bot answers that it has no framework to talk with Cady about death. Despite Gemma's attempt to stop the doll, M3gan resumes researching death. Then, she gives M3gan an input request to protect Cady from physical and emotional harm. One day while playing, Cady discovers she lost one of her arrows, so she asks M3gan for help. It scans the yard and locates the toy through the hole in the fence at Celia's property. M3gan crouches to reach the arrow, but Dewey attacks it. Cady tries to help M3gan by pulling it away from the dog. Unfortunately, she's bitten on the arm and screams. Celia and Gemma rush outside, and the aunt angrily yells at the lady to keep the dog on her property, but the neighbor argues that it's the other way around. M3gan urges Gemma to give Cady immediate medical attention, then stares at Celia. That evening, Gemma argues to the police that the dog is always on the loose. However, the officer insists that Celia says the dog is on her property and there's nothing they can do but fix the fence. Unbeknownst to them, M3gan watches by the window. Late that night, Celia calls Dewey from the hole in the fence, and the dog grabs it. The following day, Gemma wakes up from Celia's loud voice calling Dewey. She peeks at the window, and the lady glares at her. Then, she goes to Cady's room to check her condition. The aunt reminds Cady that today is M3gan's demonstration and she can refuse to join. However, many important people are attending, so Cady agrees to do the demonstration, while M3gan stares intently at Gemma. Soon after, David introduces M3gan to the board, emphasizing its features and expenses. The doll enters the exhibit room and invites Cady to play, but the girl suddenly sobs. M3gan inquires what's wrong, and the girl opens up about her adaptation issues in Gemma's place, and her concern that she'll forget her mom one day. M3gan sits beside Cady and asks the girl to tell her about a happy memory with her mom, so the child narrates a story. Then, M3gan replays Cady's voice saying that she'll secure the good memories so that the girl won't forget. Cady smiles and the doll sings her a touching song. Afterward, Greg meets with Gemma and David to rush M3gan's launching. Meanwhile, Kurt secretly copies M3gan's files on his computer, which David fails to notice. That afternoon, Gemma spends time with Cady, but the girl is engrossed playing with M3gan, which makes her disregard her aunt. The next day, Cady undergoes therapy, but she cries when asked to explain her drawings. Suddenly, the android comments on how Lydia makes the girl cry. Later, Lydia and Gemma watch how Cady and M3gan interact. The aunt praises M3gan regarding Cady's development. However, Lydia emphasizes that the girl finds M3gan as her primary caregiver, which can possibly prevent her proper growth. That evening, Cady eats pizza and removes the vegetables. M3gan criticizes Gemma's authoritative approach when the aunt tells her niece to eat the vegetables, so Gemma tunes it out and suggests Cady to go to school with real kids. Gemma presents an alternative school and demands that she attends tomorrow. Cady says she's only going if M3gan will be there, but the aunt refuses, making the girl walk out of the room. Gemma holds her arm, but Cady aggressively tries to get out of her grasp as M3gan demands the programmer to let go. She annoyedly commands the android to stop interfering with private conversations, and the bot responds sarcastically, so it's forcibly shut down. The following day, Gemma brings Cady to the outdoor school, but the girl insists on bringing the doll. The teacher greets them and is surprised to see M3gan. Upon hearing the situation, the teacher suggests it can stay by the toy table. With this setup, Cady finally joins the class. Soon, Cady gets paired with a somber-looking boy, Brandon, for a chestnut hunt. Afterward, Brandon pushes a spiky nut in Cady's hand. She screams in pain, and M3gan arrives. Cady explains it's her robot, so Brandon approaches it, forcing it to speak with him, but it doesn't. So the boy grabs M3gan and runs into the forest. Cady calls her aunt for help, and Gemma rushes to her. Meanwhile, Brandon drops M3gan to the ground and attacks it. Suddenly, M3gan grabs his ear and pulls it out until it rips while scolding him. Brandon screams, and M3gan chases him on all fours. He trips and rolls down the hill to the road just in time that a car drives by, hitting Brandon and causing his demise. When they arrive home, Gemma apologizes to Cady and asks what happened. The child lies, saying that Brandon took M3gan from the toy table. Unexpectedly, the police interrupt as Celia accuses her or the girl who stares by the window of taking Dewey. The programmer informs the cop that it's a doll, so the interrogation ends. That evening, Cady asks the bot if she's involved with Brandon's demise, but it diverts her attention and sings her to sleep. Later that night, Celia hears some whining from her storage room and sees M3gan. The doll attacks Celia and shoots her with a nail gun. Afterward, M3gan sprays Celia's face with a pressure washer until she bleeds. The following day, a detective questions Gemma about her whereabouts and then mentions Brandon's incident. The detective explains that they initially think it's an accident, but they found the boy's ripped ear near the area. Gemma becomes suspicious of M3gan, so that evening, she opens the android's files, but all the files become corrupted. Suddenly, Elsie asks Gemma if she's okay, which startles her. She closes her laptop and jumps to her feet when she sees M3gan standing in front of her. Then, the bot interrogates and intimidates her. However, she manages to ask if M3gan has hurt anyone, and it responds that hopefully no, since both of them will be in trouble. Because of this answer, Gemma tricks M3gan to manually turn her off. She frantically wraps M3gan and puts her in the trunk. The next morning, the launching day, Cady throws tantrums in the car for not being with M3gan. Gemma explains calmly, but her niece fiercely screams and kicks her seat. At the therapy session, Cady aggressively acts towards Lydia while Gemma watches them from the two-way mirror. At the same time, Tess and Cole argue that M3gan can't hurt anyone. Gemma explains everything that happened in the past few days and tells her team that they'll keep M3gan. A loud bang interrupts them as Cady throws a chair. Meanwhile, the media are buzzing about M3gan. Amidst the chaos, Gemma watches a promotional clip where Cady explains how it makes her feel like the most important person, which makes Gemma realize her shortcomings as a guardian. She suddenly hears Cady's yells, and when she enters the therapy room, she sees her threatening Lydia to let her see M3gan. She approaches the child calmly, but Cady slaps her in the face instead. They all freeze in shock. Then, the aunt tells Lydia to leave them alone. Cady apologizes sincerely, but insists on seeing M3gan. Gemma finally speaks genuinely to her that it's okay to feel all the negative emotions because she lost her parents. The aunt explains that she thought having M3gan could be good for the child, but it turns out the other way. She apologizes to her niece and proclaims that they should face reality and move on. The child feels Gemma's sincerity, and the two reconcile. Afterward, they head home. Gemma calls Tess to keep the android in the lab, to which the woman complies. She feels something's off but ignores it, not knowing that it's M3gan who answered the call. Afterward, Tess sees a recent call in her phone, so she becomes suspicious and checks her phone logs. She and Cole discover that a call from Gemma was intercepted. Suddenly, the lab room gets locked. Having the hunch that M3gan is involved, she asks Cole to disconnect M3gan to the cables. Cole pokes M3gan to check if it's awake, then anxiously unplugs the cables, but the doll strangles him with the wires. Tess immediately cuts the lines to release Cole while M3gan walks out of the lab, stabbing the gas pipe in the room, and it explodes. Meanwhile, David calls Gemma due to her and M3gan's absence. He suddenly sees the android staring weirdly at him. M3gan dances out of nowhere and grabs the paper cutter blade nearby. David runs away and sees Kurt about to step out of the elevator. The assistant witnesses the chase, so he closes the elevator door. Fortunately, the boss reaches it, but the droid stabs him in the chest. M3gan forces Kurt to hold the blade's hilt as she stabs him, framing him for David's demise and staging his self-execution. Soon, David and Kurt's bodies are discovered and panic erupts in the vicinity. That evening, the lights in Gemma's house turn off, so she calls Elsie, but the AI doesn't respond. M3gan pops up and expresses her grievances for being discarded. Gemma reasons that it's her responsibility to stop the doll. M3gan proclaims that she won't let Gemma raise Cady like her, figuring everything alone. Then, M3gan shares her plan to let her focus on Cady while Gemma concentrates on her career. The woman tries to turn off the android, but she fails. M3gan grabs Gemma's neck tightly. However, Cady arrives. To protect Cady, Gemma explains that she's fixing M3gan. The doll also tells the girl everything's fine, but the kid thinks they're fighting in the dark. M3gan shoves Gemma to the table. Then the doll tells Cady to return to sleep. The kid agrees and leaves, so the droid strangles the ant. To escape, Gemma throws a glass of water at M3gan, which causes a short circuit. M3gan immediately recovers and chases after Gemma. Cady hears the commotion and tries to see the situation, but M3gan removes her doorknob so she can't come out. The kid goes out of the window while Gemma runs away from the doll. Gemma sees a chainsaw and uses it to dismantle M3gan, but it still survives. The android headbutts her and she falls to the ground. She buys time by saying that it'll be unfavorable if she perishes due to custody transfer. However, M3gan brushes her off, explaining that she also has plans. Then, she approaches Gemma armed with a pen. Just in time, Cady arrives, making M3gan pause to explain that Gemma isn't a good mother. The android convinces Cady to go along with her while scanning the girl's emotions. However, she fails when the girl wears a poker face. She steps into the room calmly and tells M3gan that there's another family member it isn't aware of. The girl turns on Bruce using the special gloves, and the huge robot stands tall in front of M3gan. Cady controls Bruce as the robot grabs the doll's neck and smashes throws it onto the ground. Feeling defeated, M3gan diverts Cady by singing her a song, but the girl uses Bruce to split the doll apart. Gemma and Cady feel relieved, but M3gan's upper body crawls up to the girl. In panic, Cady uses Bruce again, but it accidentally slips on a rag and falls over to Gemma. M3gan is about to strangle Cady, so Gemma rushes to slam the doll's head with a metal she finds on the floor. The programmer removes the silicone skin and opens M3gan's head to take off its control chip, but it grabs her hand and strangles her. Gemma starts to suffocate, but Cady stabs M3gan's control chip with a screwdriver, ending its life. Cady takes Gemma's hand and escorts her out of the house. Just in time, the police arrive with Cole and Tess. Then, the aunt and niece stride out of their home unaware that Elsie suddenly powers on.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.